The propaganda's a win, stress feeding on my tension. My countrymen, they love their fiction. Words upon now, it's made with good intentions.
Welcome to 1 or 200, the Politics and Media podcast. I'm joined by two co-hosts this morning. Jenny, how you doing? Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for welcoming me back. I'm okay.
Great.
So confidently said, yeah.
And Oliver, back again.
Yeah, kia ora.
We're going to be mirroring the establishment media this week because there's only one real big New Zealand story and they're all talking about it. I think they're doing it badly.
Thank God.
I think it's been pretty fucking horrific out there, but we're finally starting to see some of the fallout for the institution that is the New Zealand Police, for the handling of the Jevon McSkimming case, which is one of the worst public, what do you even call it? Like
Scandals.
I don't want to call it a scandal. Like it feels like it runs it down, right? It's worse than that.
I think that's only because the term scandal has been watered down over the years, where in reality it should still hit, and it just kind of unfortunately doesn't because there's a scandal every day.
Yeah, I guess early content warning on this one as well, right?
Of course. I mean,
anyone listening.
Horror.
Because there's gonna be some pretty bad details throughout this. Obviously, if you've been following the news, it's not good.
Yeah, and it's the one layer deep underneath the surface of it is an absolute horror show of completely complicit senior ranking Ministry of Justice staff fully and deliberately involved in covering up this exact, like one of the worst sex offender outings in maybe New Zealand history.
Yeah, it's just shocking, and it's like it's everywhere. You know, you mentioned Ministry of Justice, it's all through the police, it's other senior police people have been pulled in for an investigation.
Andrew Costa.
Yeah, the ex-head of the police. Some people have moved on to like other roles, like at the Aviation Authority. You know, people have moved out throughout other organizations over the course of the last decade, I guess, that have been pulled into this IPCA report. Staffers, assumedly, in the office for the Minister of Police. Presumably staffers in the office of the Prime Minister, if this was also sent to Luxon, which it sounds like it may have been. These emails that were giving politicians, I guess, a heads up on what was happening with McSkimming, and were somehow diverted by Andrew Costa to go to his office instead of to the Minister of Police. And it's all very absurd and also quite unbelievable at this stage that somehow the government, you know, the ministers in charge were able to be completely, I'm just going to say, protected from ever having seen this. To be able to maintain plausible deniability at this stage just seems a little too far.
Well, I mean, Mark Mitchell is just lying through his teeth, which I'm genuinely quite shocked to see. Not all publications, but some outlets just like treating his version of events as though it has any credibility when it's one of the most obvious just fantasies ever concocted by any major senior public political figure. Insane that he's gotten away with just saying, oh, well, that all of those emails, I just didn't see them. They were just kept from me. The police were hiding them from me. I was being kept out of the loop.
Emails and going through my office. I want to be really clear as well.
Yeah.
Just let's rewind for people who aren't kind of up to date, up to speed with what's been happening. If you're not listening from New Zealand, if you haven't been bombarded with this in the media, essentially the Deputy Commissioner,
second highest ranking police officer in New Zealand, just in case you aren't aware of that,
who had responsibilities like being in charge of police IT rollouts, which is relevant, was during a routine investigation, apparently found to be using work devices to access child sexual assault and bestiality material to just, I mean, any degree is shocking.
Just to clarify, we should clarify, because part of his story was about this. He was accessing these materials for his own sexual gratification. His initial version of events, when it was first discovered, he attempted to make the claim that it was part of work, or that he was investigating something. So just need to clarify that is not what happened. He has since stepped down, pleaded guilty to the charges, and is being sentenced, I think, next week.
Sounds right. And following that, a kind of more in-depth investigation of McSkimming and his career was undertaken, and it turned out there's a whole bunch of stuff and like warning signs, red flags for this guy that implicate the previous head of the police.
So the independent report from the IPCA came out, and they discovered a long paper trail of a young woman who had worked underneath him at a certain point. She had seemingly initially early on had been sort of swept up. She was very young. She was in her like early 20s when he was in his late 30s, 40s. He was her senior manager at the time, kind of swept up, and then at some point he sexually assaulted her. I should be saying allegedly, but according to her, that happened. She then basically, like, there's a bit of missing material in between, but later she started basically trying to report that because she decided it was time to come forward. She started emailing. She didn't get anywhere with that. She started sending increasingly aggressive and hostile emails, getting very, very angry with staff at police for not taking her complaint seriously. So the police's response was to arrest her under the Harmful Digital Communications Act and charge her with a crime for reporting that a senior police officer had sexually assaulted her. So,
and like, what do you even say to that? Right?
What? I was walking down the street the other day on my way home
Where
from
is
work.
this going?
No, and I saw a police car had pulled someone over for a speeding ticket. And my first thought was, how fucking mad would you be to just have a cop hassling you right now, knowing that these guys involved with this at the very top of New Zealand police have not yet stepped down. Andrew Costa, heavily involved in covering up not just child pornography and bestiality, but also covering up sexual assault, has not yet stepped down from his CEO position in that new government department. I forget what it's called, the Social Investment Agency. These men think that they don't really deserve to suffer consequences for this. And it's not even just like a reflex, which, you know, it should be. It should be. They should be going, I am disgraced.
I'm out.
I'm done. I should be out. And if they're not, someone else within the Ministry of Justice, someone like Mark Mitchell, who is again trying to lie and pretend that he's not involved, not only should Mark Mitchell just be gone, but if he's not gone, he should be the one now firing these people. But he's not doing that. And all I could think was just like, why should I be subject to a group of people like this, who behave like this, who conduct themselves like this, and yet still feel that they have a mandate to uphold the law in this country, despite the fact that they break it themselves in such an egregious fashion.
And this is one of those central issues with policing, right? Is that they're not here to uphold the law. They're here to protect capital. They're here to uphold the power structures that allow the powerful to wield that power. And I'm sorry, Oliver, but you're on the other side of that, as are many of us.
No, hang on. I'm not. I'm just a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. One day the boot's going to be on my foot.
Oh no.
It's it is really something to see because that kind of interaction, right? Where
it's maddening.
You're being pulled over, you're being, racially
Don't get me
profiled.
wrong. I fully cancel me if you want, but I fully believe in like traffic policing. I'm not an anarchist. I believe in some aspect of a law, and I believe that you need some kind of body to uphold that law. For that reason, I tend towards anyway. But the reason for this, to me, is that you agree to these sort of systems and upholding of place under this sort of social contract, under this assumption that the people who are responsible for this enforcement, for this upholding of law, which there are, speeding and stuff, is this kind of the good laws. These are laws that we should be keeping people accountable to. We do so on a proviso that those people are going to be not necessarily like perfect paragons, but at least base level observant of those laws, and they're not, and it's infuriating.
And funnily, we should be talking about this from the frame of speeding tickets, because the head cop currently, Richard Chambers, has just had to stand up in front of a press conference and say it's the stupidest thing he's ever done because he got snapped with a speeding ticket last week. That one I was less mad about because
it's a little bit related.
It's not like, obviously not on the same scale, but it just, the
dumb mistake, dumb embarrassing mistake. At least, he didn't cover up the sexual assault.
Yeah, as far as
we know.
And like, here, yeah.
We should pray for days and where the most embarrassing thing our cops can be admitting to is a speeding ticket.
Yeah, I think those are a while off until they're completely disestablished, honestly. The McSkimming stuff like goes back a bit this year that we've known about. The more recent issues with McSkimming and the way other parts of the police have covered for him have only kind of come out in the last couple of weeks. But then 2 to 3 weeks ago, we also had this scandal where 30,000 breath tests were falsified. Ostensibly, it seems to meet breath testing KPIs, further creating issues with, the role of policing, further undermining the police. And the one which I'm really interested in the fact that we haven't seen much more about yet, following the reveal of McSkimming as the prominent police person that was being charged, they did another sweep of their systems and found that there were other police who had also accessed similar material. And we do not know the extent of that yet. We do not know what the process for that is yet. I'm assuming that some of that is because it's now under investigation, or potentially with the courts. But it feels like there's still a lot to be told in this story. And honestly, I don't know how the government survives this. And I say that, but then I open up NZME, like New Zealand Herald, News Talk ZB, and you have
The Heather Allen Duplessis think piece on this whole issue.
Yeah.
That was just disgusting and foul.
And then you hear that this woman who was trying to get accountability for allegedly being sexually assaulted by McSkimming years ago, also sent what she'd said to media.
Yeah, there was that line in I want to say Herald that said, like, we get this kind of stuff all the time. We don't really take it seriously. And I was like, whew, the casual thing to just drop in the middle of a story.
Yeah, why don't you take it seriously instead? What do you mean you get it all the time?
Yeah.
What do you get all the time?
Yeah, well,
what kind of material
give us some details about what you're receiving. But I know, you know me, I'm a bit old school. I still have a lot more faith than I think you do, Kyle, and the capacity of the mass media. And I suppose I'm hoping that there's some diligent person out there who's trying to pull some of that stuff together now and give it another look over, if nothing else, because it would make a good news story. So even if it's entirely from self-interest, I'm hoping that there's something there where they're going, we need to maybe look back on some of these things and see what we can find that we maybe didn't take seriously before that we should have.
Well, I mean, some of this would have been happening during the big push around Me Too, right? Yeah. Where there was a whole bunch of stuff being published and some reporters were making a big name for themselves out of it. So you just have to wonder, at what point does the gate come down, right? As to the perpetrators, and who and what will be reported. Because certainly I don't think there's any country in the West, or maybe in the entire world, that hasn't had a fourth estate that is happy to protect the armed forces, whether that's military or police. Yeah, it's...
Well, I mean, yeah, if we're talking international, we should probably address the other elephant in the room, which is I think it's like the 7th or 8th time that the story has broken that Trump is a child molester. I've lost count of how many times that's been a breaking news story. And they seem to have found a really good tactic that works to get away from these scandals, which is just kind of ignore it and keep pushing. And for some reason, people just kind of tune out and forget. Or bomb another country. It seems to also help.
Yeah, it turns out if you have power, you can wield it. And sometimes that includes staying unaccountable for horrific crimes.
It turns out if you have power, you can wield it. We need to talk to Labour about this immediately.
Well, I don't want them wielding it in quite this way, to be fair.
No, obviously not. But imagine if cool people with good ideas wielded that power instead of, the Trumps of the world.
Part of it as well is that I don't think it's just the Republicans who are implicated here, right?
Oh, God, no.
It's very clearly across the US class of political elites.
So again, if you're living under a rock and case you're living under a rock, there was another Epstein dump. This time, a ton of emails in it. It's just absolutely lousy with Epstein emailing back and forth with Donald Trump, talking about Donald Trump. Really funny emails where they're like bullying Donald Trump. There's one where there's like a whole bunch of these like high-powered American elites, and they're like joking about how like Donald Trump is like the least popular pedophile in the pedophile club. It's oh my God, some of the most insane, haunting material you will ever come across. Allegedly, they claim that Vladimir Putin has a series of photos in which Donald Trump is performing oral sex on Bill Clinton, and a number of the emails make jokes about that, about those photos, the existence of those photos. So yeah, you mentioned both sides of the aisle. Oh boy. Nothing
Yeah.
new there though. Like we knew these men were all involved.
I mean, you've got other folks in there as well who are like funders and the size and would like for the Democrats like Larry Summers, just popping up, just having chats with Epstein, old mate Epstein.
Recommending books to him, saying, "Hey, have you read Lolita? I know a lot of other books that are also about child sexual
Wait.
exploitation that you might enjoy, Jeff."
Does it actually?
Yeah. There's one of the emails is I forget her name. She's the head of the English department at Harvard. And she's written an email to Jeffrey saying like, "Hey, I know you love the book Lolita because you like the materials.
You are
Wink,
kidding.
wink. Here's
Yeah.
another book about a man sexually abusing a little girl that I think you might also enjoy because it has some great shared themes."
Jesus
Just
Christ.
like, what do you mean? Like, whoo, yeah. And the other bombshell was that it appears that that Jeffrey Epstein joined Donald Trump after his notorious plea deal. Joined Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving in 2017 after he was president. So
What do we do with this? Right? Like, I mean, because it's not just New Zealand that is facing this, what do you even call it? Crisis of
you don't get it?
accountability. Sorry.
You don't get it?
Yeah.
It's brass eye, but real. It turns out like the whole world is just run by a bunch of pedophiles.
I don't want to say QAnon's right because they weren't. But also this has
Look,
been
on this one thing,
this has
like,
been in the
stop the
tank for a
clock.
while, right? This has been, we've known about these sorts of behaviors among the ruling elite since the 60s, like late 70s, like
Yeah, I mean
out in
the
the
settles and
UK,
stuff.
like,
Yeah,
and
Prince
there's
Andrew
always
was doing
been
it back then.
there's always been hints of it. It hasn't been splashed on the front pages and had this amount of public attention allowed about it. The cover-ups have worked previously, but it seems like we're getting to a point where enough of the people involved have beef with each other that they're willing to use that as compromat and act on it when they don't get what they want. And it feels like that really has been the reason this has been pushed into the public sphere rather than being allowed to operate in the background as it has for decades. Yeah, I guess I'm saying let's not pretend this is anything new for
Yeah.
powerful people.
Well, that's something I think I mentioned this on the last episode I was on. You start to feel insane because these bombshells break, like that notorious letter that Trump wrote where he was like, "We've our little secret," that creepy little drawing that he did. That was being treated not just in the news, but also on like Twitter and stuff, where I thought people were a bit more like aware of these things. People were talking about it like it was this brand new revelation, and I was like, this has been around for about 5 or 6 years. This came out yonks ago. But for some reason, I don't know, the memory on this stuff is so short. I guess because I don't know, there's such a mess of information these days that it's hard to keep track of everything. But, a lot of this stuff, it just keeps coming out. Like I said, it's like the eighth time this bombshell has been dropped that Trump was close friends with Epstein and absolutely unambiguously, I'm not even going to say allegedly, is a child rapist. And there's not really any wiggle room there. There's no light in between. What do you do? What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, like literally most powerful man in the world, right?
Hmm.
As far as such things go. And no one's offed him yet, right?
Because
Like,
I mean, I don't think his support base cares though, right? Like, I mean, at first the Republicans wanted to not have any information out about the Epstein files, and now they have a House vote on wanting to release all of the Epstein file material at once. I just don't think that the Republican Party base or their supporters care about this pedophile shit enough for them to stop supporting him. And I think the only people that this is going to really, I guess, affect politically in a negative way is probably the Democrats, because as you said, it's across the party lines thing, right? Like it's both political parties in the States. And the only people that I guess maybe still have an issue with child rape were probably people who would vote Democrat potentially. So then, like, the outcome here, I think, is just going to be, I don't think it's really going to be a net positive for the election. But I guess net positive for truth. I hate America, man. I hate this shit. It's a terrible
They're
system.
positive for truth. I think the
Like,
other
Yeah,
thing
well,
is that
what is this? What's the point of this? Yeah.
Trump's
well,
got
yeah,
well
because
ahead of it, right?
you mentioned QAnon before, and notably QAnon as a sort of de facto wing of the Trump propaganda regime historically has only ever been interested in Epstein insofar as it implicates
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton. That has been
Mm.
all they've ever wanted to talk about. And you'd be like, yeah, but you guys know like the guy that you love, Trump, is involved. And if you talk to QAnon people, they would very quickly deflect. It was pretty clear what was going on there. But now that it's kind of all coming out, the general vibe of the QAnon, including, I don't know if you saw the recent stuff from Alex Jones, is just saying, well, this is all just a distraction. It's all just made up. Honestly, there's even people going, yeah, maybe Epstein didn't do all that. Maybe it was all just a beat up. So the QAnon
Mm.
very notably showing its true colors in that it's now moving on to doubting the thing that they built themselves around
Almost like it was
because of
not
how
all along.
exactly because of how irrevocably Trump is involved. They're now having to go,
Mm.
oh, actually, maybe it's not all that, or they're taking the Megyn Kelly approach. I don't know
Oh,
if you saw this,
Oh,
where they're going
disgusting.
on TV going, oh,
you mean
look,
the Act Party approach? Yeah, the
Yeah, is a
libertarian.
yeah,
is a
actually,
15-year-old a minor, you know? They're of
yeah, maybe you
Snapchatable
should,
age. So,
yeah, making the case that you should be allowed to sexually assault 15-year-olds
yeah.
because they're not quite that young, according to Megyn Kelly
Yeah.
and
Oh,
Batia Angus Sargon.
uh,
What a horrendous clip.
the United
And
States'
what a
very
what a
own HDPA.
yeah. What like, just the most monstrous things becoming normalized in public discourse because the people implicated in these monstrosities are extremely wealthy, extremely powerful, and have an unreal amount of influence over mass media.
Mm.
Yeah. I guess I'd like, for optimism's sake, I'd just say like I think they're attempting to normalize, right? They're attempting to make it seem like, oh, it's a smear, oh, it's not real, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, it's not really that. I don't think the public is gonna buy it. I think it will be added to like a wider list of public doubts about the way that these people comport themselves, about the way that our society is structured. But there's so much other stuff as well. Like these people like have people with their cars and kill them and like get away with it too, right? Like they have people killed. You know, you were saying earlier, Oliver, they just drop a bomb on people. These are their crimes against humanity and against individuals are endless. In
The
some
Israel method.
respects, yes, in some respects, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That fits my view of what these people are. And I think it is, yeah, just another straw on the back of undermining that political system. And then the question is, what happens out of that, right? Do the Democrats or whomever manage to leverage this extra little bit and get him kicked out and then switch themselves in and do the same shit? Or do
Mm.
people say, actually, no, it is. They're all like this. And we get that kind of new wave of political leadership who actually want to change the way that things are structured, not just the face in front of it. It's kind of like is Mamdani or other people of that political generation, are they just the next Obamas? Or
Opportunists, you mean?
yeah, who are there
Mm.
to like, hey, I'm gonna say the things you like to hear, and then I'm gonna increase drone strikes to a level we've never seen before, or etc. Or do we actually start to see a shift over the next few years? Because I'd like, do we even have votes in the next few years? I don't know, right? Like, I think, how do you think it lines up with the New Zealand experience? With, you know, it hasn't had any sitting politicians just yet. Minister of Police, Mark Mitchell, should definitely have just resigned on the spot.
Should have
Like,
resigned, yeah.
yeah, but has managed to like not get interrogated by the media at all. He is being actively protected. I want to be really clear about this. The media is actively protecting the Minister of Police by not pushing him hard on this, and trying to get his what do they call it? Like, get a scalp over this one.
Yeah, I think it seems very clear they're very happy to try and get Costa to be the guy who catches all the shit here. I think they're probably going to be happy with that as far as scalps go, when it very clearly should be Mitchell. It probably goes higher than Mitchell, but it would make more sense for them to be going, like, if this was the 90s, Mitchell would have already resigned for starters.
Yeah,
You
there's
know,
kind of
if
a
this
sense
was
of like
20, 30 years
decency or
ago.
whatever, right? Like
Yeah,
even if
exactly.
even if he had just missed it, even if he was when he says he had never seen it, he wasn't lying.
It's still a disgrace.
He still he still would have resigned. He'd be like, "Yep, that's on my watch. I'm gone." Like,
Yeah.
you know, and then
But
the prime
we're
minister would be
past that
like, "Yes,
age.
good."
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, I think in the last one as well, is that we're sort of past that age of accountability because Trump has sort of demonstrated that you don't have to take accountability, and if you don't, there's never really any downside to that. There doesn't really seem to be any consequences for that
Yeah.
anymore.
Do we think that will become like the crisis of leadership that we now see in the US? Like, it's certainly bubbling under the surface, right? Although we've not really had anything to that level as yet. And there's still ostensibly accountability processes in place. Like, people can also point at the McSkimming case and say, oh, look, they got him though.
I mean, to reach US levels, we'd probably need to have like 10 more Tim Jago copycats. It's probably what we're going to have to do if we want to reach like the US overflow of pedophilia in
Now,
the
we're talking per capita here, though. Keep that in mind. It's a conversation about New Zealand, so.
Yeah, I
1.5 more
mean,
Tim Jagos then.
yeah, maybe just five more. But I think that, how do I say? I think this has been I think the trend towards having discourse or having these like, I didn't want to call them bipartisan, but like, because we know that these are issues that affect whether, I guess, leadership, whether or not they're centrist, rightist, or leftist, in most countries. If you're part of the political elite, I think there's a pretty good chance that you are aware of some form of activity of this kind going on. And I think the Thanksgiving thing is one issue. I want to point to this still ongoing, unnamed New Zealand Media Publication Board scandal that's probably about to break related to charges of sexual contact with minors. And I feel like that situation could potentially have more wide-reaching implications into the New Zealand political sphere.
Oh, this is a prominent media executive.
Yes, the
I think is
prominent media
being.
executive case that I'm talking about that's been the news that the Herald broke maybe last week, that there was a
Keep in mind,
prominent
this is the
media.
second prominent New Zealand
Yeah,
executive. Don't confuse this with the first one, who has been sentenced and is apparently in jail, but has lasting name suppression. This is a
yeah.
second case now of
A new prominent media executive who has a sexual contact with a minor. And also, I think it's been reported on, so we can say this. Charges have been amended multiple times now. At first, it was sexual contact with someone, I think, below the age of 14 years old. And now it's been amended to 16, and there was a plea deal that was entered into, which I feel like for most of us, we can assume you enter into a plea deal and get your charges amended when you have debt on someone important or there's like a larger reaching case here, right? I'm just saying, I'm speculating. It's all alleged. But I think the environment that this prominent media executive is likely to be in is one that I think will probably touch the National Party directly, whether or not it's via formal party cabinet ministers or whether it's through finances from the US or Canada who are like avowedly very, very right wing and also have supported pedophiles in the past. I think it's just tip of the iceberg. And I think that one thing that the media has been doing in terms of reporting on these scandals is, I think what we pointed out before with the Epstein thing, everyone who is implicated in these just hates each other. And I really see that this environment that we've created around prominent media executives and everyone coming forward to do like a he said, she said, or like I was aware, they weren't aware, they're doing to cover their own asses, right? So I think we are going to see I guess, a pedophile renaissance probably very soon at large media organizations. And there will undoubtedly be people that the coalition are linked to who are implicated in this. And I would hope that in this country we are less, I don't know, we're less, what's the word, desensitized to pedophiles being the ruling class. And I think I would hope that we would have like more of an uproar and take a stand against the kind of stuff, unlike what's happening with the government, standing government in the States. But I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
think
tough.
that's something I hadn't really thought about, but it's here. The ruling class aren't the politicians, right? In the same way as they uh, tend to be in the US,
Mm.
more directly linked. Here it's like our nouveau riche, alongside our rich list of families.
Yeah,
Because
the
that was
people that make
another,
kids' toys, you know?
yeah, yeah, that kind of
Like
thing. Although apparently none of them are involved in the recent ones.
allegedly.
So, but there was another one in the last couple of months was a 40 or something year old in a prominent rich list of family was
Hmm.
is also currently under investigation and charged with having child sexual assault material. It also has name suppression. It's funny how this
Yeah.
keeps happening, isn't it?
I know, it's
Um,
insane. We keep letting it happen. Like, you know.
and they keep getting name suppression, and sometimes that name suppression becomes permanent. And that was one of the really, did it come out in the IPCA report that initially they'd wanted to get permanent name suppression for mixed
Mixed
gaming,
gaming. Yeah.
that
Mixing, yeah.
which is absolutely insane, and that was like driven by the police. But this is how they operate. And while it may not be, our MPs, our cabinet ministers, our prime minister, who are directly involved in these activities, as you're saying, Jenny, they associate with people who are,
Mm.
and they almost certainly know that some really horrific shit is going on. And it's a scale of the way that people abuse power, right? Like, not that you should even have to make a scale of this, because that's fucked. But we know McSkimming was doing all kinds of horrible stuff. It
Hmm.
wasn't just like looking up objectionable materials on his work devices. It
What actually?
was
Can we go back to that actually? Because I'm sorry. How fucking stupid are our cops? Like you
Yeah.
mentioned also the falsified breathalyzer test that implicated like 100 plus officers, which
Yeah.
for some reason haven't been stood down. How fucking dumb are the people that we're elevating to senior positions in our police force that they don't think, hey, I shouldn't look up child porn on my work phone?
Mm.
When that story broke, I was on my work phone and I didn't Google it because I thought the last thing I want is the IT to ping that
Yeah.
and go, hey, don't Google stories like that on your work phone. So I waited till I got home to read about it because I was like, yeah, I shouldn't look up a story about this topic on a work device.
yeah,
Mm.
pretty
And
common sense.
that's not me being a genius. That's me just being like just a basic normal person who understands IT departments and work devices. This man was the second highest ranking police officer in New Zealand, and as far as I can tell from all current evidence, dumber than a teenager.
I
Mm.
think there's a sense of being unaccountable and untouchable, though, right?
Do we think so though?
I mean, he was in charge of IT services. Like there has to be some of that. Like I can get away with
Suppose.
this.
I mean, they have like,
I've got away with stuff for 20 years, right? Like
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
who's gonna get
Complacency.
me? Who can get me? I mean, that is stupid to think that way.
I
That
think
like
I feel like it's stupid to think that specifically around truly objectionable crime.
yeah.
It's not crazy to think that about like the occasional sexual assault because cops love covering that stuff up. It's not crazy to think
mm.
that about occasionally stealing stuff because cops love that kind of thing. It's not crazy to think that about like doing drugs that you nick from the evidence locker because cops, like every cop in New Zealand, loves doing that shit on a regular basis. So they're never going to snitch each other out on that sort of stuff. But when it comes to certain crimes, I hate to say it, but like we do kind of apply prison logic to it, where child molesters are bottom rung, and we know police forces tend to operate on very similar sort of gang logic. That's the sort of crime I think it's very hard for you just to go, it's just boys being boys. Hey, I'm just one of the
Mm.
boys, because you're going to creep out. Like maybe this is a bold thing to say, but I don't think the majority of New Zealand police are child molesters. So you are going to creep out your colleagues. They're not just going to go, yeah, like they would with all the other crimes I was talking about, that because they all do that sort of stuff.
Mm.
This is that there are levels to it. Thank
Mhm.
fuck. there is a degree to which they'll go, no, I can't look past that. And I think that he had crossed that line. And I honestly think that's probably part of why he's gotten caught. The fact that any of this is even able to start leaking was probably because he crossed a line that even a cop is not going to overlook.
Keep in mind that like some of the other top people in policedom did still try and cover for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's us covering at that point. That's them going,
sure.
oh
That's
shit,
like,
because we are implicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's them going, this happened on our watch. We are going to get in trouble if this stuff comes down the line. And also, as mentioned in the IPCA report, part of why they wanted to go for that name suppression was because they were worried that it would hurt his chances of becoming the commissioner.
It's covered a bit in the report as well, but what else is just wild is this guy was up for the top job.
That's what I'm saying. It's exactly and that's why
it was between him and Richard Chambers, the current head of the police, and some of the stuff in the report is people saying like, "Oh yeah, don't know anything about anything bad that this guy's done," while having been part of investigations around his earlier assault.
Literally falsifying official reports. So like that's what I'm saying. Like these guys need to be. It's not enough that they just go, oh, God, we didn't know. Oh, God, they can't believe this has come out. Because you did know, and you said that you didn't on an official public record.
I don't know, top 5 solutions for this. We want to say
solutions. Top 5 solutions?
Top 5 solutions. Okay. We're just spitballing here. Top 5. Oof. Here we go. We're going to go with arrest them and charge them with a crime. Probably. Yeah. Actually, we're going to make that 4 because 5 is allow them to resign in disgrace.
Oh, but keep their pension.
Okay,
apparently.
5. Allow them to resign, but not in disgrace, keeping pension and benefits. 4, resign in disgrace and or fired. 3, arrested and charged with a crime. 2, dragged through the streets and beaten with sticks. 1, just put them in a meat grinder. Just throw them into a big pit and drop rocks on their heads. Like good old-fashioned caveman justice. I don't know. It seems like I feel like that would be really good for like the public at this point to regain a bit of trust.
It would raise morale, like real breast type shit, right?
Like it's been such a long time since we've had a good old fashioned truth and reconciliation session, and I feel like, John Key the other day, they asked him for comment, and he said, "Look, stories like this really erode the public's trust in the police." And God bless him, I think John Key was right. This stuff does erode trust, and one of the ways that we can rebuild that trust is a community event. We get everyone together in like Albert Park. We dig a big pit. We put Mark Mitchell, Andrew Costa, Richard. And of course Jevon. Put them in there, and everyone just throws rocks or whatever they've got on their head, and then
microwaves.
Well, hey, we could also use it as an inorganics thing.
So.
For all intents and purposes, this is a work of satire. Nothing I've said here is actually serious or actionable.
I just want to be clear. This is clearly satire because we're laughing as we say it.
I am not going to dig a pit and stone people to death.
No,
that's too much work. I'm a very busy person. I've got 2 young children.
Who do you think undermined the police more? Mark Mitchell, Jeff McSkimming, and Andrew Costa, or Tamitha Paul when she did a DJ set that had "Fuck the Police" on it?
It's a really good question, and I will need some time to have a bit of a think because
John Key would say Tamitha Paul.
Surely not. Surely not at this stage. Surely he could not.
I think the focus on the narrative being the worst part of it means that he would probably pick Tamitha Paul. I don't know. Does he have party loyalty? Who knows?
You got to remember, swearing is not okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, let's bring the house into disrepute, but not necessarily the police. It's a tough one.
It's a hard call, Kyle. You've given us a tricky question.
I don't think
Mike Hosking will know the answer.
I don't think he's thinking about it.
He'll have an answer that has been printed out and handed to him.
Yeah. It is coming back to that though, like, right? How are our politicians going to handle this, especially coming into 2026 with an election on the line, and especially with the way that both Labour and National and the further right parties just love to ramp up crime and punishment narratives alongside the media, who are just love to get really bloodthirsty about it. They want to chuck people in pits, They want to throw rocks and microwaves on top of them regularly, and they regularly talk about it in their columns, which are just opinion and aren't real views. But how does that play out in an environment where people go like, "No, mate, Yeah, yeah. How about we don't give the police more powers now? You see what they do with it. Actually, I don't trust this minister of police. I don't trust the police leadership. Why are they on anything? Why are they near anything? Is it more photo ops with Sunny Kashal, like who is
Mm.
himself in the middle of a scandal around the way that he's using funding for being like a crimes against small businesses magnate? Like everything in this environment is completely politically toxic at this point.
You know, the other funny story that came out in the middle of this that made me laugh was also the very, very underreported story about inappropriate gifts. It was like 5 or so days ago, I think,
Oh yeah, yeah, which included the police.
which included in police of all things. I was like, God, fucking, they always show up in every story. But New Zealand police accepted a juicing machine, a fruit juicer, from Israeli police, from the Israel police force, which they then put in the police national headquarters in Wellington.
Fuck my life.
I guess they didn't get the memo from like the FBI and the CIA that you're not supposed to accept appliances from
Foreign
Israel.
governments,
This is
Jesus
going to record you or blow you up or both. Like,
God.
Like Langley and Quantico have a non-written policy that they don't even allow Israeli nationals into their headquarters because it's like every single time they've done it, they've brought some kind of listening device that they've tried to hide somewhere in those offices. But for some reason, NZ police are like a juice machine. Oh, cool.
cool. The top brass will love this.
Oh,
They
they're
need
gonna
more
love a bit of
fiber.
fresh orange juice.
Oh no.
But hey, it turns out Israel were making a bet, and they probably bet really well because I bet they've got some incredible conversations about Mick Skimming and Andrew Costa on that thing now.
Yeah, but they're never going to release them.
No, well, why would they? No, you got to hold on to them so in case New Zealand tries anything funny.
Yeah, yeah, but now both of them are out. So
Yep,
what can you
ruined
even do
their
with that
compromise.
compliment? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we'll wait for the next one. We'll wait for the next one. But yeah, what do they do? What do we do with like yet another thing with the New Zealand police being absurdly stupid when the economy continues to be bad next year and National Act are like, man, we really need to beat up some homeless or we need to beat up some
Migrants is going to
criminals,
be the big one.
some gangs, some migrants, and people turn around and go like, with these cops, do you think it can be brute force? Do you think the media are just going to be like, we're just going to do it? We're like, we're in, we're part of this. Like, let's just make it happen.
I don't foresee the fourth estate being a bulwark against this, but I have some hope that public opinion will remain a bit of a bulwark against this. I hope. I don't know. I've never seen such widespread hatred of police in New Zealand. I always, we were always a kind of a fringe cop hater group of people, but like my mum the other day was like, "Oh, these guys are a bunch of scumbags." It's
Oh
like,
shit.
bro, like she's not like conservative at all, but like she's still very much like, "Oh, you got to have the police are looking out for us," sort of type person. And now she's just
Mm.
like, "Fuck them." You know, you're losing those people, just the normies, the lovely, kind-hearted old mums. There's something indicative there. There's some sort of breaking point there.
Jenny, any thoughts from like a media point of view, especially what we've been seeing on social?
Oh God.
Do you think it will reach
Yeah.
a critical mass?
I hate having thoughts on media. But I am heartened by the fact that probably over the last 4 or so months, Herald readership has probably dropped by almost 500,000. Just FYI, if anyone is actually curious about this. The Herald used to have, I think, 2 years ago, 2023, just over like an audience of 3 point something million people in New Zealand. Last year dropped down to about 2.1, so a big drop. And then this year again, they're now, I think, currently about like 1.5 million people. So the share of people subscribed to the nation's worst propaganda is constantly, constantly dropping. And outlets like RNZ and stuff are gaining readership, conversely. Not getting the full portion of Herald unsubscribers because I feel like the paranoia and mistrust in the media is so great. But we are seeing the market share of, I think, probably the most right-wing enabling outlet in the entire country rapidly shrinking. So while I hated my time working in news media, and I don't believe anyone with a really strong moral compass still works in news media, I do agree with Ollie here when I think we're talking about whether or not the media will they cave and capitulate to the bestiality watchers of the world? I don't think so. I think there will be some people that will write some pretty inflammatory think pieces to counter the Heather Allen Duplessis of the world about our leadership and people in power requiring to be able to have some kind of moral high ground, right? Or like at least a moral standard. And I think that while most of the reporting on the police has been completely abysmal, there's been some decent stuff there still. There's been like, apart from the fluff about like, how much did Jevon McSkimming spend on a hotel in California? There's been some good stuff like time-liming everything, like all of his offenses and allegations from like 2016 onwards. By the way, great work by RNZ for doing that and laying the facts out really clearly, including physical receipts. So yeah, I don't think they're gonna completely roll over on this issue, but I think it really depends whether or not the share of voice for sane people in media, we can maintain this good split, this positive split against the Herald.
Fantastic, and what a place to end. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ollie. Thanks for coming along.
Yeah, all good. Please don't get me arrested.
Do my best, do my best.
Do my
And
best.
thank you, Jenny.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to our audience. Like, share, and subscribe. We've got something else coming in the midweek, so keep an ear out for that, and we'll catch you next weekend for current events. See you there.
If artificers are denied, living a pointless life, but learning all your lessons. Fucking politics, there's no distinction. The road's apart now. It's paved with good intentions, and I'll admit that I'm at a loss for what to say when they quote this as a cost we ought to stay. 'Cause I live amongst the people every day. This vindictive, forgetful fucking rain. It feels like we're on the road to hell.